welcome back to my channel. My name is Avarice Rose, and yes, my hair is purple and silver. We did some changes. We got a little bit sick of the gray coming in, so I decided to embrace the gray, and we are slowly going to move the gray down lower until the purple is only at the bottom. I can't wait for that to happen because the amount of times my hands are just absolutely blue from the color is ridiculous. So in today's video, this will be the final Haunted Castles of England series episode. We will be going next week to Scotland, which I am super excited about. I have family there. My grandparents are from there, so it's just so great. So today we are not going to be looking at a castle. We are going to be looking at a place that is notorious for being haunted, notorious for demonic activity, notorious for sitcoms and stuff like Most Haunted or movie shows, Paranormal Investigators, Ghost Adventures have been, and it is actually a very old, ancient place. And it is the Ancient Ram Inn. So grab a snack, grab your iced coffee if you can get one, or some tea, curl up, and let's dive in to the Ancient Ram Inn. So the history of the Ancient Ram Inn goes as follows. The inn was built in the year 1145 when William Fitzrobert, heir to the Lord Berkeley, had served as the first recorded rector of Wootton. So this was connected to a church. The original building was larger than the present one that you can still go to and see, and had been home to local priests. Something to note about this location is that it's also rumored to be on top of a pagan burial ground that stretches way before 1145, somewhere in the region of 3000 BC. And there's even a wooden building on the property that the old owner, John Humphreys, said has been dated back 7,000 years. And that building would host regular rituals involving human sacrifice. However, that is anecdotal. That is what the old owner used to say to people, used to tell people. There isn't any concrete evidence for that, but it is interesting that that kind of rumor of a pagan burial ground and a church type deal was built on top of it, or part of a church building was built on top of a pagan burial ground. During the reign of King John, there was a fire that almost wiped out the entire town of Wootton, but the Ancient Ram Inn did manage to survive. It would later become the house for craftsmen and slave laborers involved in the construction of the 13th century Church of St. Mary the Virgin in the rebuilt center of Wootton. So this inn is situated on a pond called Potter's Pond, and there's streams that cross the inn's land, and had to be diverted in order to lay the foundations for the church. Some people have theorized that this redirection of the water was instrumental in opening a portal for dark energy. As it is often claimed of Christian architecture in the Middle Ages, the church was supposedly built on a ley line by intention. So that this inn is on two ley lines, and the old owner, John, has pointed out that the line drawn on a map from Stonehenge to the church would necessarily pass directly through the Ancient Ram Inn, which could be one of the main reasons why there's so much paranormal activity that happens there. One of the most well-known legends surrounding this haunted English house is that of a witch who was burned at the stake. The burning occurred in the 1500s at the height of prosecutions against those who did not practice government-sanctioned Christianity, and many believe this woman's spirit still haunts the Ancient Ram Inn because she took refuge there shortly after she was captured and killed. And today this room is called the Witch's Room. So This building has a lot of history. It's very ancient. It's one of the oldest buildings in England, and it's crazy. John Humphreys did move in the 80s. He brought his daughters and his wife there, but they soon moved out because they couldn't take the paranormal activity. The house is pretty much semi-derelict, so there's not a lot of, there's electricity, but there's not, I don't think, running water, and there still isn't running water. It's a very old house. It's just like, if you were going to put money into this house, you would need to put in a lot of money to fix it, to stay in its, original integrity, to keep its original integrity, but also to just bring it up to code and, to let people stay there, or make it an actual inn where people can go and, record their paranormal experiences, or make it a paranormal house where investigators can come in and out and just do their investigations that way. So I first heard of the Ancient Ram Inn when I watched a documentary about it, which included John Humphreys, who I believe has passed away since then. So John lived in the residence until his recent death, and the ownership of the Ancient Ram Inn has now passed to that of his daughters. It's still pretty derelict. It's still pretty dangerous to go into some parts of the house, not even for paranormal purposes, for just structural integrity purposes. And when I saw this, I was like, whoa, this is intense. And then I kept looking up videos of it. Most Haunted's been here, Ghost Adventure's been here, I believe TAPS International, Ghost Hunters International has even been here. So I've been able to see and research and look at a lot of different people who have been visiting this place, and it's pretty intense, the things that are, suspected to go on here, that are said to go on here. The types of entities that are here are pretty unique. So let's talk about the ghosts, spirits, and entities that reside in the Ancient Ram Inn. We'll start in the men's kitchen. So this room is kind of a hodgepodge of different things. When John was living there, it was really macabre, a lot of hoarding type things that had to do with the occult, just everything everywhere. And it was completely just from head to toe, corners stuffed with things of the occult. Here's where this was the burial ground, supposedly, allegedly, the burial ground of the pagan site. And also it was here, it's in this room where a lot of people hear the sound of a baby crying. A woman was murdered here by highwaymen and is said to continue to haunt the building. And electronics have been known to fail in this room, and camera batteries constantly drain themselves here. In July of 2003, Ghost Club, which is a paranormal investigation team that was founded in 1862, visited the Ancient Ram Inn and photographed a number of orbs in the men's kitchen floating above John Humphreys' head. They also reported a moving electromagnetic frequency hotspot, so this hotspot continued to move throughout the room. It didn't stay stationary, it kind of moved around. And in here is an ancient grave. Now, I've seen this, it's crazy. It's really weird to have it in your house just open like this. So there's a sign in front of it, and the soil is open and uncovered and exposed, with a cross and a shovel in the back corner of the room. And around the grave, there were, at the time of John living here, really strange ornaments placed around the grave, and just really weird things. Again, this guy was a little bit, totally into the occult and things of the paranormal realm. So this grave is still open, and John said this is where they found the little children's bones. And he was referring to a group of ghost hunters from nearby Swindon who in 1997 were given permission to tear up parts of the concrete floor while searching for the entrance of a sealed cellar. And then said they found this grave, which held the remains of a woman and a child buried along with the broken iron shards. These iron shards were analyzed by the Bristol Museum, and they concluded that the signs may point to ritual sacrifice using an iron dagger. And unfortunately, the ghost hunters suffered a car crash on their way home. So who knows what they unearthed. The next place is called the Mayflower Barn. This is on the ground floor closest to the roadside. It's a large and largely undeveloped space of the inn and formed the former stables of the property. When the television program Most Haunted came to the Ancient Ram Inn, the team's resident spirit medium, Derek Cora, was possessed by an entity that told the team to visit the barn. And in the space, one presenter was set upon by an invisible force that threw him to the floor before beating and kicking him. So the entity in this room seems to be malevolent, not kind, and an 18-year-old ghost hunter previously claimed to be thrown to the floor by an unseen force. And John has said to see strange lights in here going on and off at different times. A father and a son team ran out after seeing a ghost rise through the floor. And a 7-foot-tall shadow has been sighted rushing through the barn and out the door. So there is definitely something here. So there is a narrow set of stairs that run up to the first floor. There's a ram's head that overlooks this at the top. People have been thrown from the stairs. And in 1999, an image was captured by a paranormal investigator, Julie Hunt, that appears to show an apparition, white mist, ascending the staircase. And many local paranormal investigators have been said to be shoved or pushed down the stairs. The witch's room. This room is a lot of velvet, a lot of stuffed animals, and the story goes, in the 16th century, a woman in the town of Wootton believed to be a witch. She fled her trial and briefly took refuge in the Ancient Ram Inn before being recaptured and being burnt at the stake. Sometimes people say that a black cat was her familiar and that she still haunts the room where she had hid, appearing at the bedside to anyone brave enough to spend the night. Sometimes a cat is seen in the room, which would go back to the witch if she had a familiar. Lots of people have captured orbs and lights and shadows in this room and photographs. Lots of people hear noises in this room, different noises from different places. So a lot happens here. A lot happens in this place. So the bishop's room, which is probably one of my most intriguing rooms in the entirety of the Ancient Ram Inn for me. There are lots of stories associated with this particular room, and it's said to be the most haunted part of the Ancient Ram Inn. During the time when the inn was functioning as an inn, people would refuse to stay in this room because it was so haunted. They would run out screaming in the middle of the night, furniture would fly around on its own, and one time a medium was thrown down the corridor attempting to open the door. Other sightings in the room include spectral monks, as well as the plumber who came face to face with the ghost of a mounted centurion, which is crazy. A cavalier has been seen appearing by the dressing table before walking across the room. There have been reports of a young woman hanging from the ceiling beams, a shepherd with his dog, and the disembodied screams of a man who at some point supposedly was killed by having his head thrust in the fireplace. Well, those who would spend the night and were brave enough to last all night would complain of a presence that climbed into the bed alongside them before pinning them down and interfering with them. And this is the infamous Succubus that John says that he has encounters with nightly. So a succubus is a demon in a female form that appears in dreams and takes the form of a woman in order to seduce men, usually through sexual activity. and usually the male will succumb to the female spirit, thinking it's just a dream. And some people believe that over long periods of time, interacting with an entity this way can cause severe mental deterioration, health deterioration, or even death, or possession, or partial possession, or oppression. So this thing is like no joke, and definitely not an entity you want to mess around with. So when you enter this room, you apparently have to announce your presence and say, is anyone there? Greeting them, making sure that you know you're respecting their space. There's also talk that you make the sign of the cross before you go into this room. Sometimes John would tell people that if he didn't do this, or even if he did do this, you know, the whole knocking, saying the greeting, whatever, violent bangs would be a response, or like the room would seem to shake. It's a very strange room. Red curtains and sheets and nightshades. There's a spinning wheel, Chinese dragons, Pharaoh's sarcophagus, and the stuffed and mounted head of a fox. There's also supposedly a Bible set beside the Egyptian sarcophagus. So it's just very weird. There's a lot of things in this place that could have potentially brought activity with it, and added to the activity already there, or a lot of the things that were brought to this place caused the activity to run rampant. There are reports of extreme cold spots in the room, dancing lights that resemble firelight or fireflies. Dogs have randomly just attacked their owners for no reason in the room. There's a hooded figure behind the dressing table that appears, and 2 investigators who spent the night there actually had to be exorcised by the local vicar. A handwritten sign is on the far side of the bed along a tear in the sheets, explaining that these were stab marks caused by evil devil worshippers. And the final place is the weaver's attic. So this was originally used by weavers, and it's a bedroom now. John's daughters used to live up here at one stage, and they would often hear sounds of something being dragged, like something heavy being dragged across the floor. Visitors to the building have echoed the same story, particularly those sleeping in the bishop's room directly beneath the attic. According to some, the weaver's attic is haunted by the ghost of an innkeeper's daughter, murdered at the ancient Ram Inn sometime in the 1500s, and named by one visiting medium as Elizabeth. Lots of mysterious myths that get photographed in this attic, as well as abnormalities in electromagnetic fields that shouldn't be there, and the sounds of like something panting. And when Most Haunted came here, again, their spirit medium Derek became possessed by a vengeful presence. So enter at your own risk the ancient Ram Inn, ladies and gentlemen. That is all I have for you today, guys, on the ancient Ram Inn. We are done with England. We are moving on to Scotland, and I am super excited about it. For those of you who have been around, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Stay inside, stay safe, stay sane. One love, you guys.